Now let us see the very important concept in production concepts, that is returns to scale. Returns to scale means the returns enjoyed by the firm for every inputs introduced in the production process for a given period, say 1 year. It means that if the total production or the total output, right, enjoyed by the firm for every input factor introducing in production process is known as returns to scale. So return to scale implies the behavior of output when all the factor inputs are changed in the same proportion given the same technology is also known as returns to scale. Simply, how can you define returns to scale? Means returns enjoyed by the firm for every input factor introduced in production process for a given period is known as returns to scale. Here returns means in terms of output, we can say returns means output. Output are the returns enjoyed by the firm for every input factor, that is technology, machinery, raw material, capital, land, and all other factors introducing in where means in production process for a given period is known as returns to scale. So in other words, the law of returns to scale explains the proportional changes in the output with respect to the proportional changes in inputs is also known as returns to scale. Proportionate change in the output for a given change in for a proportionate changes in the inputs is also known as returns to scale. For example, 10% increase in inputs, 20% increase in output. It is called as returns to scale. So the proportionate changes in output for a proportionate changes in the input is known as returns to scale. Right? So very simple to define the returns to scale, that is returns enjoyed by the firm for a inputs introduced in the production process is known as returns to scale. So these returns to scale are explained with three ways, or these are the three aspects of the loss of returns. There are three types of loss of returns, such as increasing returns to scale or law of increasing returns to scale, second one, law of constant returns to scale, third one, law of decreasing returns to scale. So they are the three important scales based on the proportionate changes in the quantity of output for a proportionate changes in the quantity of input. We have classified into three, that is law of increasing returns to scale. It is also written as IRS, increasing returns to scale. The second one is law of constant returns to scale, CRS, constant returns to scale. And the third one is decreasing returns to scale, that is DRS, decreasing returns to scale. Based on the changes in the output due to for a given change in the input, we have classified the returns to scale into three ways. So there are the three types of law of returns to scale. Now we will discuss clearly how these returns to scale are changing, or how the output is changing due to for a given change in the each input in production, right? The first one is law of increasing returns to scale. Law of increasing returns to scale, also denoted by IRS, increasing returns to scale. So what is the key factor here we need to remember? That is increasing. What is happening here? For every increase in input, the output is increasing. The output is increasing, or it is defined as proportionate changes in the quantity of output is more than the proportionate changes in the quantity of input is known as law of increasing returns to scale. It is a situation in which output increasing by a greater than the proportionate changes in or increasing the inputs or the factors of inputs. For example, 10% increases in 10% increase in inputs leads to 20% increase in output. This is the situation we call as increasing returns to scale, or law of increasing returns to scale. Here only 10% is increasing inputs, but the output is increasing to 20%, double than the inputs. This is a situation is known as law of increasing returns to scale. We can define the law of increasing returns to scale as proportionate changes in proportionate change in output greater than proportionate change in inputs, proportionate changes in inputs, or the rate of responsiveness changes in output is more for a given change in inputs. Means the inputs are introducing in the production is less than the finished products that we are producing, is known as law of increasing returns to scale. I am repeating, law of increasing returns to scale means that proportionate change in output greater than proportionate change in inputs. 10% increase in inputs, 20% increase in outputs. That is the situation known as law of increasing returns to scale. Now let us see how this law of returns to scale schedule and the curve will in the concept of production. So here increasing returns to scale schedule, we will discuss with the schedule and the graph. Increasing returns to scale schedule. So here we are taking labor and here the total production. Or we will take the two inputs, labor capital and total production denoted by TP. So labor capital total production. Here the labor 1 2 4 8. Here the capital 10 20 40 80, where the total production is 50 120 300 700. 300 and 700. See here, this is the schedule which explains law of increasing returns to scale. If you observe here in this schedule, 1 to 2, 100% increased in the labor, 100% increase in the labor, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. Here also increased 100%. Similarly, 10 to 20, 100% increased, 20 to 40, 100% increased, 40 to 80, 100% increased. Means here for every case 100% increased in both the capital and the labor, where the production is increased from 50 to 120, means more than 100%. That is here 120%. 120% increased. Here 50 to 50, 100. Right? Here it is more than 100%. It is 120% increased in production. 100% increasing in labor. 100% increasing in capital. But here more than 100% increase in the total production. This is the situation we can set it as a law of increasing returns to scale. 120 to 300, more than greater than 100%. 300 to 700, greater than 100%. So here in every case, how the labor and capital is increasing, the total production is increasing more than the labor and capital. Means in this case 100% increasing in inputs leads to more than 100% increase in output. This is a situation we can say that law of increasing returns to scale. 100% increasing labor, that is 1 to 2, 100% increased. 2 to 4, 100% increased. 4 to 8, 100% increased. Similarly, 10 to 20, 100%. 20 to 40, 100%. 40 to 80, 100% increased. Where the production is increased more than 100%, greater than 100%. This is a situation we can call it as law of increasing returns to scale. The second one is law of constant returns to scale. The second scale in returns to scale is that constant returns to scale. Constant returns to scale. It is also denoted by law of constant returns to scale, CRS. So constant returns to scale. So here we need to focus on the returns are constant. The returns are constant. In the previous situation, we have seen that there is increasing returns to scale, means the scale is increasing rate. Then 100% increasing in the labor and capital, more than 100% increased in the total production. Whereas in case of law of constant returns to scale, here the production is increased same as the total inputs introduced in the production process. Means the proportionate changes in the output is exactly equals to the proportionate changes in the outputs introduced in the production process. What is definition for constant returns to scale? Proportionate change in output. Proportionate changes output is exactly equal to proportionate change in inputs. inputs. There is no difference. There is no difference in changes of these inputs and outputs. Now let us see the schedule of law of constant returns to scale. Constant returns to scale schedule. So this schedule will explain the law of constant returns to scale. Here we are taking labor, capital, total production. Total production. What is this law? Constant returns to scale. 1, 2, 4, 8. Capital 10, 20, 40, 80. And the total production 50, 100, 200, 400. So this is a schedule which explains law of constant returns to scale. Here, if you observe the difference, here the labor is increasing from 1 to 2, that is 100% increased. 2 to 4, 100% increased. 4 to 8, 100% increased. Similarly, 10 to 20, 100% increased. 20 to 40, 100% increased. 40 to 80, also 100% increased. Here, 100% increasing in both the inputs labor and capital. When the total production is 50 to 100, 100% increased. 100%, 100 to 200, 100% increased. 200 to 400, 100% increased. Means 100% is increasing the total inputs leads to 100% increase in the total production. In other words, proportionate changes in the total output is exactly proportionate changes in the total inputs introduced. So here 100% increasing in inputs leads to 100% increase in output or total production is said to be the law of constant returns to scale. So there is no differences in the total production changes as well the total production inputs introduced. There is a equal proportionate changes in both the inputs and the output. This situation is known as law of constant returns to scale. If any changes occur, it may be increasing returns to scale or decreasing returns to scale. Now let us see the third returns to scale, that is a law of constant decreasing returns to scale. The third one is law of decreasing returns to scale. Decreasing returns to scale. DRS, decreasing returns to scale. What is the law of this? Decreasing returns to scale. Means here proportionate changes in the quantity output is less than the proportionate changes in the quantity of inputs introduced in production process. Means proportionate change in output is less than the proportionate change in inputs introduced in the production process is known as law of decreasing returns to scale. So now let us discuss with the schedule. Decreasing returns to scale schedule, we can say this as decreasing returns to scale schedule. For this we will take labor, capital and total production. Labor, capital and total production. Here what is the labor here? 1, 2, 3, 4. The capital is 10, 20, 40, 80. Where the total production is 50, 80, 120 and 200. Let us take. See, here this schedule is known as law of decreasing returns to scale schedule. So this schedule explains how the changes in production due to the changes in the labor. If you observe the labor 1 to 2 100% increased, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. Here 2 to 4 100% increasing and 4 to 8 also 100% increased. Whereas the capital 10 to 20 100% increased, 20 to 40 100% increased, 40 to 80 also 100% increased. But whereas coming to the total production 50 to 80, 50 to 80, here 50 units when 100% increased in the labor and the capital, it is increased to 80 only, means it is less than 100%, means decreased less than 100% only. Of course the total production is increasing but decreasing compared to the inputs introduced in the production process. 80 to 100, if it is 100%, it should be 160, but it is 120, means here also 100%, less than 100%. 120 to 200, here if it is 100%, that is 240, but it is increased only to 200, means it is also less than 100%. Here how you are increasing the labor and the capital, the total production is increasing but decreasing rate. This is a situation we can say that law of decreasing returns to scale. 100% is increasing in capital, 100% is increasing in the labor, but here less than 100% increase in the total production. This is a situation called as decreasing returns to scale or law of decreasing returns to scale. Here what is the behavior of this inputs and the outputs? 100% increase in inputs, 100% increase in inputs leads to less than 100% increase in the total production. The output is known as law of decreasing returns to scale.